You quit porn. You made that decision to step away from explicit matter and you expected to feel better fast. But instead, you don't. You feel worse. Your sleep is even more disrupted, if that can be possible. Sexual arousal function is even more lacking. You have SAD, or maybe even full-blown ED. You thought things were going to come online, and now you hear that hijacker's voice in your mind. He's saying to you, see, we don't need to quit. See, it's good for us. See, we should go back. Well, I want you to know that what you're experiencing is a very particular phase in explicit matter recovery. Now, phase is the important word. This won't last forever. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. But knowing what's going on can be really powerful to help you stay the course. So that's what we're going to dive into today. This video is brought to you by my HarperCollins published book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. If you're ready to quit porn and reclaim your life mentally and physically, go over to drtrishleigh.com/book. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh, cognitive neuroscientist. I want you to know that this beginning phase doesn't last forever. And in fact, you're in the right place doing the right thing. So let's dive in. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. So I want you to know if you quit explicit matter and you are in the dumps right now, this is part of the natural progression. Let us look at the hijack. Before we do that, I want to tell you a story that happened recently to me and my precious daughter. She's an equestrian. She jumps horses, and she's truly amazing. But this past weekend, or actually a few weekends ago, she had a rough time. I want to share some pictures of how she was performing. And yes, there is a funny picture of me that the professional photographers snagged. Now, here's what happened. This was the first time she was in a top-level competition. She really didn't feel that nervous. But in this first picture of her, she's jumping her horse, Laureate, actually, he goes by Larry. She's jumping her horse, and look what she's doing. She's biting her lip. And she said to me, she's like, I don't know why I'm doing it. And I'm like, I know why you're doing it. It is a muscle tension, anxiety type of behavior. Now, the funny thing is that the photographer grabbed a picture of me and I am biting my lip too. So it is very challenging when you feel dysregulated that, first of all, it shows up in your mind and your body in a subconscious way that you may not recognize, but it also will attune to people around you. I don't get nervous for her at these competitions because she rocks, and we're there to have fun, not necessarily win. This time, she really felt the pressure to do well, and she realized it after this first competition. So there's her biting her lip. There's me videoing her biting mine. This is her debriefing with her trainer afterwards. Both of these are her trainers, but her main trainer here was talking to her, and look at my daughter's face. It's kind of a face of, this is Saoirse. This is a face of like exasperation, and she's trying to explain her process to her trainer, and her trainer gave her feedback. It was positive feedback, but it was direct and maybe even a little harsh, but that is the way that she delivers the feedback. So I'm going to show you some more pictures of Saoirse later on that day, but we both joked that the day had highs, the day had lows. This is how it started. Lips biting, trainer giving feedback that maybe Saoirse didn't want to hear. Now let's talk about what this has to do with you. So what it has to do with you is that when your brain becomes hijacked by explicit matter, it is experiencing repeatedly high dopamine spikes. And what that does is your brain will adapt to it. So if you check out this graph that I made, you can see that we have dopamine spiking incrementally here with high levels of intensity. So if you remember, explicit content, explicit matter of all kinds, especially pornography proper. So you go to a pornography site, very high levels of dopamine, level 25 on a scale of 1 to 10. That provides very large dopamine spikes to your brain. Spike, crash, spike, crash. spike, crash. But you get used to that. So it's adaptation. You get used to the cycle that I will explain to you in a minute. So then when it comes to the time that you make the decision, you decide, I am quitting explicit matter. Now, especially if you don't have the tools, if you don't have high level technology like I help people with, and if you don't have the support that you need, you're making this decision to change your brain performance pattern and chemistry without the right tools to do it. So what happens is dopamine drops significantly, and you know what this blue one is. It's flatline. So as these dopamine levels are crashing, going even below baseline, you might feel terrible. Okay, so then what we see is after the flatline, this is a dopamine drought. This is a significant dopamine deficit state. When you don't have enough dopamine in the first place, but you're also experiencing significant deficit compared to the dopamine flood, the deluge and the drowning that you were experiencing, you may feel terrible. You may have withdrawal symptoms, more anger, irritability. You might not be able to sleep. Most times, explicit content acts as a sleep facilitator because it's actually suppressing the system. But then after that flatline, you have this window of instability. You might be all over the map, right? Dopamine's trying to come back online, but it's doing so in a very chaotic way. This whole aspect may increase the discomfort and the instability that you feel in your mental and physical health because it's coming from a disorganized and an unstable brain performance pattern. This is the hijack, my friend. But this is a secondary hijack. This is actually the hijacker, these red dopamine spikes and crashes. But the hijack that you're feeling when you feel worse is the fact that you're in an instability window. And when you have an urge, you might read that as a call to go back, that you can't handle this. But I want you to know you can, in fact, handle it, especially if you have the right tools and techniques. In my book, Mind Over Explicit Matter, this is the OG version of it, the first one that I ever received. In this book, I put my heart into it to show you that there is a 4D dopamine cycle that is happening when you consume explicit matter. Of course, pornography proper, but also lower level supernormal stimuli like sexualized social media, right? Sexualized social media content. That is very high dopamine also. And I've been thinking lately, sexualized social media might be even worse than pornography proper. Now, of course, if you have a significant pornography habit, that is much worse because there's much higher level intensity. But most people are caught up in sexualized social media with more frequency and consistency. Scrolling and seeking is a dopamine behavior in the first place. And then when you sexualize it, you've got two layers there, not the intensity of porn proper. But what I want to share with you is that if you feel like this isn't working, it's because of the 4D dopamine cycle and you've landed yourself in the drought. What the drought looks like is this. This is the 4 dopamine cycle. The drought is a dopamine deficit state that I just showed you on the last slide. But then when you feel an urge, which you might have felt, so let's say you quit 3 days ago and you're feeling slightly terrible, but you're still motivated, and we'll talk about motivation. You're still motivated, but now you have an urge. You mistake that urge for desire, not for a dopamine drip. The moment you feel an urge, that is dopamine beginning to drip in your brain. What that means is you have 3 seconds to pivot. Science shows this. And if you want to read the study, it's in my book, Mind Over Explicit Matter, that confirms that. But when you feel this drip, your brain will take you toward the deluge. This is what leads to slips and relapses. So then if you do follow that drip and you don't make your pivot plan and pivot, you will end up in the flood, which leads you to the drowning. Sometimes the chaser effect takes hold, especially if you're trying to stay away from explicit matter, and you will chase down every drop of dopamine until you can't get any more, and then you stop consuming. That's your full-blown binge. After that binge, you end up in a dopamine deficit state. Again, the cycle repeats. Dopamine spike, crash. Dopamine spike, crash. You can handle the flatline. It is the beginning of the instability phase, but it's the hijack we're talking about right now. It works like this. So when you feel that spike or that urge, it's begging you back into that 4D cycle. When you get that drip of dopamine, there's anticipation. That's why you have 3 seconds to pivot, to go get dopamine from the real world. If not, you will slide down that slippery slope towards the deluge. The anticipation is the relief that you're going to get soon if you do follow through on consuming explicit matter. The relief is you feel numbed out. You're taken away from the world and the cares that you have, which, trust me, my cares, they're adding up these days. I've got 5 beautiful children who have a bunch of cares, which gives me a bunch of cares, and I have my own cares too. Cares in the world can be challenging, but you can handle it. When you escape into the relief, you're actually training your brain to stay in this cycle. Part of breaking free from it is improved emotional regulation, being able to handle the things in the world. Break free from this cycle. This is the miswire that happens in the brain. It is the brain needing to go back to dopamine to offset the stress, the perceived boredom, which is actually lack of overstimulation from stepping away from explicit content, hopefully also sexualized social media. Okay, so this is not my idea, friend. This is proven by a wealth of research, but this is one study, and I love this. It shows reward prediction error and intermittent rewards, where we see there's a stimulus and you get this spike, and then your brain is actually being taught to go back to the screen for the reward. So we think of dopamine as the molecule of pleasure, but it's also the molecule of learning where to go for that reward. And it's validated by this study. This is what I want for you. You teach your brain to go into your real life for the rewards, not into the screen. Go back to pickleball if you ever took it up. Play basketball, play piano, do things with your friends that you like. Seamus went go-karting yesterday. He thought it was the first time, but I reminded him of the family trip to Tennessee where I smoked everybody. But he was a young child when we did that, so he was feeling good about his first experience. But you can teach your brain to get into the real world, to your hobbies, to the work that would be producing dopamine if you weren't caught in this cycle, and of course to your honey or lack thereof. If you don't have a honey, so many people think they can't find a honey, and that's why they need pornography and explicit matter. It's the opposite. If you're caught up in explicit matter, there's no room in your brain for healthy intimacy because of this cycle. That's the miswire. Research shows it, but research shows you can retrain your brain too. Okay, so if quitting feels easy, I'm here to tell you that that might just be for now. If quitting feels destabilizing, your nervous system is recalibrating during that instability phase. So going back to Saoirse and her horse, the reason she felt like she was being thrown off is because she was in a new experience that her brain wasn't ready for. So what happened in that situation is she was going to jump higher than she's ever jumped before on her horse. That put a lot of pressure on her, which then created more anxiety. She's committed to doing consistent neuroregulation with me because of that experience. She thought that she had this handled, but she had the performance anxiety and it destabilized her. But across the day, she spent it stabilizing, and she had an awesome quote that I'm going to tell you in a second. But if you are wobbling and you feel like you're being set off kilter, that's because you're in the recalibration phase. Now, let me show you what happens in the brain. Let me show you what happens in the brain when your brain is dependent on dopamine. This is the brain pattern that I identified in my recent study on porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIED. This brain pattern shows that the brain has low ability, that's the blue, to get into a calm and relaxed state. That's called low alpha. High alpha shows the brain's ability to get into a calm but more stimulated state. In this brain map, those are low in the active state. We see there's a significant increase in alpha. It's called alpha response when the brain goes into a resting state. So what this means is that when your brain wants to chill out and relax, the brain can't do it internally by itself because it's caught in this 4D dopamine cycle. So instead, what it does is it needs to go to something external, like pornography proper, like sexualized social media, to get that dopamine deluge or flood in the brain, which increases alpha, that calm but stimulated state. When alpha is very high, it is associated with depression. This is the speed that is associated with lack of motivation, with difficulty focusing, your get up and go, got up and went. This is what creates SAD, sexual arousal dysfunction. And based on this research study that I've just completed, and I have to find time to write up and get into the scientific journal, based on that study, I have developed what I'm calling the LAUGH protocol. Get it? SAD, LAUGH protocol. All right, I know. I haven't committed to that one, but it's the Leigh Arousal Function Protocol based on a study of more than 200 brain maps showing what sexual arousal dysfunction looks like in the brain, and then developing protocols to recalibrate on a neurophysiological level these brain performance aspects so you can feel and perform better again. So on that day with her horse, Saoirse was very upset. She actually cried twice. No, we don't have pictures of that. Thankfully, through my own journey of improving my emotional regulation skills, I've learned to be there for her. And if a person's dysregulated, you don't ask them a lot of things. You let them regulate themselves first, which is what she did. But I did encourage her to debrief herself, to go get quiet, and to think about what is off. Her horse, Laureate, actually refused twice. You have 3 times that the horse can refuse or you're out. He refused twice because he knew she wasn't asking for the jump properly and the two of them could get hurt. She appreciated that about him. She locked in and she got the 3rd jump. But across the day, she really spent the time in reflection. Her coaches actually switched her from the higher level jumps to a little bit lower. She was not happy about that, but it proved to give her the courage and to help her gain the skills that she needed. And this is what she said during the day. And it is totally real and true that she said this. Are you ready? She said, "Just because I'm struggling doesn't mean that I'm failing." When my kids say things like that, it is such a wonderful moment because it means I'm teaching them to stay out of shame. I'm teaching them to look at their behaviors. And if they're not getting the behaviors that they want, look again. Look at what broke down. Look at what you can do next time. So if you are struggling because you quit explicit content, do not give up. The struggle may be real, but the struggle indicates you are moving in the right direction. No struggle, no growth. No pain, no gain. You got this, but you might need the right tools, the right techniques, and the right support. I don't want anybody to struggle forever. During that day, Saoirse's trainers switched places. She got a different trainer who came over, who kind of talked to her in a different way that made more sense for her. Awesome, right? And then they did decrease her jump size. At the end of the day, she had an awesome jump. She won a blue ribbon, which I did not. First place. She came in first place twice throughout that day then. Totally awesome. You can come in first place in your life. Do not give up. Change something if you are not getting the outcome, but recognize you're in a position of brain instability. Your brain's recalibrating. You got this. Okay, so let us look at what that looks like when you are rewiring. So when regulation sets in and you have more stability, anxiety comes down. It's high beta. It looks like red on the brain performance trend screen I'm about to show you. When low beta goes up, it's increased motivation. It's increased confidence. This is what needs to happen. The stress and the brain fog have to come down. Power has to come up, calm focus. And then this is what the rewire looks like. How I help people is using advanced technology. And my precious daughter says she's going to lock in. And we've actually created a business, Leigh Equestrian Performance Lab, that she's involved in. And she's going to use this technology to not have this experience. You know, I quote unquote make the kids, or I have the kids do brain training, which is what I offer, but I don't make them do it frequently. She's committed to doing it frequently. My son Declan is a co-founder in the rebrand of our nonprofit, the Supernormal Project. He's locked in on training his brain, so it's really cool. So what happens is I can measure how your brain is performing. You just saw on that brain map that there is an identifiable pattern of porn addiction and porn-induced erectile dysfunction. We can see it with our own eyes. So if you have ED, don't stress it, map it. When you map SAD, sexual arousal dysfunction, then we can see it, and then we can use the LAF protocol, the Leigh Arousal Function Protocol, to get your brain back on track. This isn't a moral judgment. This is not about, shame and shaming you. That was so cool about Serge saying, just because I'm struggling, I'm not failing. There's no shame in this. This is the journey to be taken to become the version of yourself that you want to be. It's a neurological journey. Of course, then it includes behavioral change. The program that I offer, it is a 4-pronged program. It is neuro, bio, body, psycho, mind, and social. We think of the environment. And for many people, it's a personal transformation journey too. Okay, so let's look at a trend screen. This is an actual trend screen of a client who is struggling but not failing. Slow alpha is a little too high. Power in and of itself is low on this, but we're mostly going to look at high beta. You can see how it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And now it's on a downward trend. This is only over a couple days. These are session dates. So this is just a few days. This is the beginning. The struggle may be real, but it's because of this. This is a disorganized brain performance pattern, and it is unstable. But the stability's coming. We're on our way. Stay the course. Okay, so let me give you a brain hack strategy for the day. It's a 90-second reset. Okay, in the 90-second reset, this is designed to bring you back into the present. It's an embodiment exercise, especially if you feel yourself going to shame or you're beating yourself up. Serge started to beat herself up a little, and I'm like, sister, we're here to learn. We're here to have fun. You're here to get better. You're not here to be perfect. That's what this journey is. So stand up. First of all, look at your environment. Become present, then slow your breath. 4 inhales, 6-second exhale. What this does is it increases vagal tone in the vagus nerve, and it brings that red line of high beta down. When your high beta drops, you will feel calmer and more present. The urgency of an urge or craving that has presented itself will go away. You will feel more stable. You will feel more grounded. Then fix your gaze. When I do yoga or when I do difficult workout moves, yes, with my trainer, Jillian Michaels, she says to have neutral gaze. Have neutral gaze. Fix it in your environment, but then hold it neutrally. And if you've ever done yoga, you know what I mean. If you're holding a warrior 3, which can be challenging, and you fix your neutral gaze, it actually helps you to feel more grounded and present and calmer, but more focused at the same time. Now, do that for 90 seconds. Those 90 seconds will help you regulate. You will begin regulating your nervous system. So stand up, be present, inhale, exhale longer, have neutral gaze, and then do it for at least 90 seconds to help you regulate. You can do this in that 3 seconds, when the urge presents itself, to not give in to the dopamine drip that leads to the deluge, the drowning, and ultimately a deficit. Okay, so this is what you can do when you want to regulate and you realize the struggle might be real for me. Now, let me show you what happened with Saoirse. This is Saoirse at the end of the day, and I love this photo. It's awesome, right? She is locked in. Look at that face, relaxed posture, and the focus that she has. That is, not really neutral gaze, but it is close to it. It is not intense. There's no purse biting lip. You can feel more relaxation. And then this is she and I later on at the World Equestrian Center for dinner to celebrate, an up and down roller coaster day of the highs and the lows. We kept cracking up about it. If you can have a challenging day and be able to look back at it as a win, that's what regulation is. That is what I'm talking about. And that's what I was able to enjoy with my precious daughter. Okay, so this is what I want you to know. And this part is the important part. I want you to feel more than enough. Enoughness is a really important word. When you decide to quit explicit content and you're really struggling, you may feel like, I just go back to it. It'll be easier. I want you to know no matter what happens, you're always enough. I got a text from another one of my children, which this has happened one time before, that he got pulled over last night going 110 miles per hour. And old me would have been like, oh no, why were you doing that? New me doesn't do this. And the new me's been around, thank goodness, for 15 years. Instead, I said, oh no, that is rough. Please call me so I can help you figure it out. No shame, no blame, just this is life. And you have to learn from your experiences and get better and not do it again. Learn. There is no win or lose. There's only win or learn. When you regulate your brain, your arousal is going to become responsive. And what that means is when you want to be with your honey or your new honey because you've broken the cycle, you will be ready and it will be natural. You'll no longer be hooked on those super high intense spikes up to level 25. Now instead, you'll be able to enjoy an experience, not a performance, an experience at level 8, right? Level 9 if it's a really good day on a 1 to 10 scale. That's responsive arousal. That's what my Leigh arousal function protocol helps people do lickety split or faster than they can do using their mind and body. Motivation, I don't count on motivation. I count on discipline. But motivation stops being a struggle because now you can access it. Your brain's no longer caught in the cycle. Okay. Reach out to me, drtrishleigh.com, Leigh. You can book an appointment so that we can help you move forward. We use advanced technology, neuroregulation technology. It's just a headband. It's amazing. Not just, it is a headband. The analogy that I use, because some people will give me some slack about this, at least in the past, is that can this technology that's so small and be accessed at home, can it actually be clinical grade? Don't I have to come into an office? The answer is no. We used to have landlines, phones that were stuck on the wall, and I had to have a 30-foot cord to talk to my boyfriend, Terry Klein, if you're watching, hey. Now we all have cell phones that act like mini computers. This is where we're at. The tech has advanced, and thankfully I am at the forefront of being able to use that technology with people around the world. Call me, I can help. Now, if you're not ready to call me, please get my book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. No, you cannot have the OG one because I need it here as a model. She's ripping, which I thought was interesting because I've never actually read her. But get yours because this is a really good resource for you to get started. It is number 1 in its category. And when it came out just above Gary Wilson's Your Brain on Porn, which I love that. So let's regulate your brain. No more willpower. Let's do this. I want you to know if you've decided to quit, it was a good decision, not a bad one. If the struggle is real, struggling means you're not failing, you're succeeding. You're moving in the right direction. You wouldn't feel different if you were still caught up in the cycle. You're breaking that cycle. Hear me. You got this. Come back here for the next briefing so I can teach you about your brain again. Get the book and rock this out. You got it. Remember, control your brain or it will control you. I'll see you next time.